Today I'm bringing you 3 different builds that essentially accomplish the same thing, which is infinite suspensions. They use 3 different exotics, and as we know, suspensions are great in the game, and hunters have their way of doing that as well. We will start with the subclass setup, which is the exact same for all 3 builds. We use Gambler's Dodge and Shackle Grenades. We then use Thread of Warding because picking up an orb grants Woven Mail, and Woven Mail gives you a big damage resist buff. Thread of Continuity just so Suspend and Sever effects last longer. Thread of Mind so that we get class ability energy back when defeating suspended targets. And Thread of Generation because it gives you grenade energy on any damage and it's busted for every Strand build, so it's a great option. Now for our first version of this build, we're using Frosties. I don't particularly love them, but Sprinting gives you ability energy, that's all you have to do. In the helmet, I put on some Siphon mods to create orbs, and I put Dynamo, but you can change that up to other mods. I used Heavy-Handed because our melee gives us a better chance of creating orbs on multiple enemies. Bolstering Detonation and Focusing Strike will give us class ability energy on melee damage and grenade damage. And then I put Charged Up so that we can hold more armor charges, and you can use whatever resist mods you want. Insulation will give us class ability energy on our pickup. Recuperation heals us. Stacks on Stacks gives us an extra charge with every orb we pick up, so 2 charges per orb. And then we're using Utility Kickstart. This is how we would be using Suspend. You get half of your dodge back if it consumes 4 charges, which is the max of this build. Reaper, so that we have a guaranteed way of creating orbs. And finally, we're using Bomber so that our dodge feeds back into our grenade. As I said, I don't really like Frosty, so I don't even have gameplay of that. But what I really enjoyed finding out was that Radiant Dance Machines give you insane synergy with this build. Because you have to dodge near enemies with a regular dodge first and then spam your Strand dive, it allows you to get your melee back because of Gambler's Dodge every time. So it's kind of crazy, you can just spam all your abilities at the same time essentially, and it's so fun. So for this version of the build, we use Radiant Dance Machines. They let you dodge multiple times within a 5-second timer, only near enemies though. And the mods are all the same as the Frosties version, but Dynamo specifically procs really well since we're going to be dodging near enemies anyways, and Reaper as well since we're going to be dodging a lot. And everything else is just the same, and it feeds perfectly with everything else in this build. It's very good. Now for the last version of this build. In the helmet, also Siphon mods as always. You can do whatever you want. Same as the previous builds, Heavy-Handed, Bolstering Detonation, Focusing Strike. It'll all feed into your dodge, and then your dodge will feed back into those abilities through Gambler's Dodge and through Bomber, but you know the drill. And the exotic for this version is 6th Coyote, because it allows you to have a second dodge charge, which you can use as a Strand dive. So that is a big way to suspend. I'm using Font of Endurance for survivability in this build since we're not going to be using a Kickstart mod. I also threw on a Surge mod since we're, I don't know what else to use. Double Recuperation for survivability, big healing, and Time Dilation on class ability to make our charges last longer. We're also using Reaper so that we have a way of creating orbs for sure, and obviously Bomber so that it feeds back into our grenade. And it's so much suspension, I don't even know what to do with it, and this is probably the best version of this build because it's the most safe one. And I believe it's also the one that people have been using the most. It's, I would say, more simple to follow. And yeah, you can suspend entire rooms with this thing, and it's very good. If you watched this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.